Nope, so I'll continue this. I discovered I'm articulate, so I realized, well, if I'm articulate, yet I have so low self-confidence about my speech and my ability to articulate myself, that's because I am being subjected to a campaign by people to mistreat me and like brainwash me as to that they're mistreating me, as well as by other people to brainwash me into pretending that they don't understand what I say when they do. So I'm dealing with an epidemic of people. I'm articulate and they're pretending not to understand. And that's like a big problem. So, and it's like cumulatively, I, it, it makes me so low confidence about my ability to articulate myself that when I went and listened to myself, listened to my recording, I was shocked. I'm like, this is clear, this is articulate, that this is easy to understand. I know anyone can understand what I'm saying. I should not have felt so afraid that maybe I was speaking incoherently without realizing it. So, which is what people keep brainwashing me over and over by just telling me over and over again that I'm incoherent when I'm not, or pretending not to understand when they do. Like, I'm just like bombarded with that. Like, nearly everyone I talk to, it's just that's what happens until you, like what Hitler, my mother kept saying, Hitler said, if you repeat a lie over and over and over again long enough, people will believe it. And my mother, when I was young, did say that Hitler was the one that said that. And I think she said that for a reason. Okay, anyway, here is the what I wrote to my landlady. She's saying she was being vicious towards me. And so I say, actually, this note is reason to move when it occurs in this complex and is part of a larger pattern. Let me refer back to what you and the management of this place did, with respect to the sewer smell backing up into my apartment. 1. When I first complained, I don't quite remember the exact order of things off the top of my head, though I saved my emails, but I recall managers saying that the problem was the trap, which was allowing sewer gas to escape into my apartment through the... And here is where they instantly go wrong in their communication, which was on a voicemail I left. They said the appliances, plural, and then told me to run the water in my appliances, plural, until the trap filled up with water, which would prevent the sewer gas from ventilating through my apartment. This led me to believe there was some subterranean trap that was perhaps large and needed to fill up with water. Trying to run all three appliances is the wrong word. Trying to run the shower, bathroom sink, and kitchen sink for a long time really was not effective. At a later date, you and perhaps someone else managed to inspect my apartment at a time when conveniently I was not there. You then tried to blame me, saying I had trash in my apartment, that my apartment was very messy, and that it was the trash that was smelling. My apartment was not at the time messy, and I had minimal trash in it, all of it dried stuff like paper and no food, and I had pictures of my apartment which I emailed you. But you also said it was possible that the sewer smell was coming into my apartment through the bathroom window due to the fact that there was some vent located somewhere near my bathroom window, and you advised me to keep my bathroom window closed. This did not work either, and I made that clear to you. 3. At another time when I was there to pay my rent, you happened to be in the office. I mentioned that the sewer smell had not bothered me in a while. You sat next to me and explained you were going to have them, maintenance, do something that afternoon that would help fix it more permanently. I ought to mention I totally left out from this note all sorts of strange behavior she engaged in, because, to be honest, the behavior that she engaged in was so weird and over the top that it's almost like I'm afraid to repeat it lest it sounds so crazy they accuse me of being crazy for saying that she behaved that way. Anyway, to continue. That very afternoon, the sewer smell bothered me for the first time in a couple of weeks, and I don't know what you had them do, but at this point I start having a right to feel suspicious as to whether continuation of the pattern was mere carelessness. One doesn't want to accuse anyone of deliberate harassment, but it is possible to be suspicious and wonder if this was part of a larger pattern. Eventually, I became very angry and wrote letters threatening to move and threatening to sue, and I left some voicemail messages as well. This worked, and when 2 plumbers came to fix the issue, I was there. They explained to me that the problem was a trap in the kitchen sink only, would lose all of its water sometimes, due to the fact that issues relating to uneven air pressure would cause water to be sucked out of the kitchen sink trap, and once it was sucked out, air from the sewer could escape through the kitchen sink into my apartment. They installed a one-way air vent beneath the trap, which allowed for the air to be sucked into the sewer through that vent, in such a way so water would never be sucked out of the trap, but air could not escape through that vent. A pretty sophisticated fix, done with a thorough knowledge and understanding as to how the plumbing worked. In which case you had no excuse to avoid fixing the problem right away. You had no excuse to respond to my complaints with a bunch of nonsense instead of fixing the problem. And in addition to being entitled to a reduction in rent due to breach of quiet enjoyment, I believe in any counterclaim to any legal action, I could probably bring up the issue of intentional infliction of emotional distress, a claim that would not be too far-fetched, as I moved to the New Hampshire area in order to engage in outdoor exercise beneficial to helping me recover from PTSD I have due to having been a victim of some complicated but egregious white-collar crimes perpetrated by individuals connected to Harvard. I have been pretty outspoken online in terms of describing and exposing the crimes I was a victim of, something I feel I have no choice about, but something which is also detrimental to the reputations of Harvard and other institutions involved, and these institutions routinely silence complaints about their conduct by using their connections to arrange for individuals to retaliate against and harass victims who come forward and speak of their experiences. Of course, this latter issue is not directly relevant to any complaints I might have as a tenant, or at least I can voice suspicions, note a pattern, but cannot necessarily prove your conduct and the conduct of management was related to other crimes I was a victim of. Nevertheless, I also notice you happen to run a hotel, one which I presume doesn't want to develop a certain kind of reputation. I also note that the electricity bill is extremely high and wonder whether any cross-metering might be going on. If so, any amount of electric bill I paid should have been paid by you. I ought to note you said my car has Massachusetts plates, yet this was after the snowstorm, where the only plates that were visible would have been plates one could see when looking through the window into my car. I should note that I kept the title in my car, and it appears to have disappeared along with a green leather bag that had an item in it that was somewhat important to me. Here I left out, I didn't tell her that the item that was important was blood-stained Speedos, underwear, that were stained with my blood, tainted with warfarin rat poison, and I was bleeding. This was like forensic evidence that I kept because I knew I had, suffered a murder attempt, and the hospital appeared to have been trying to cover it up. So I kept the underwear so that I could eventually maybe, find people willing to test it and admit that it was rat poison tainted blood. Anyway, back to the note to my landlady. When I first told you about my new car a few months ago, I note you gave me the number of a man who you said could take away old cars which were worthless. My old car is not worthless, but without the title it cannot immediately be taken away by anyone willing to pay what it is worth, and it would take a few weeks to get a new title. I note you said that the snow plowman wanted the car gone right away, and even arranged some policewoman from Conway to call me and tell me the same. But when I talked to one of the snow plowmen personally, he told me it wasn't an urgent problem and I could take my time. How convenient that the title suddenly goes missing. Meanwhile, I was pretty deliberate about keeping the title in a place where I could find it quickly when I was ready to sell it. I will do what I can to get a new title for the car, as there is someone who would be interested in paying something for it. However, since I initially had permission to park it there, if you want it removed, you need to give longer notice than that, and you didn't need to suddenly want it gone right away the moment I break my lease. Except, of course, from a legal standpoint, I am not sure I'd say I was the one who broke the lease. Viewed by itself, the timing of the nasty note in my car might not have been reason to break my lease, as I theoretically could have spoken to you about it, given previous patterns. It is reasonable of me to avoid talking to you about it and instead to follow through on my stated intentions of a few months ago to move to a new apartment. Sincerely, Damien M. Schloming. In response to this letter, she was like, best of luck to you in your new apartment. Please have the apartment empty and the car gone by January 31st, 2016. In other words, she completely dropped all the previous harassing that she had been doing before. And not just harassing, but I just don't even want to bother going into it, but it was weird and bad behavior, which he suddenly stops when I write that letter. Okay, that's all. Bye.